A 5-year-old boy stood in front of a king, not as a guest, as a hostage. His own father had handed him over as a guarantee of loyalty. When the king threatened to hang the child, a messenger rode to warn the father. His father's response was 3 words: "I have the hammer," meaning he could make more sons. That boy grew up to become the most powerful man in England, not through inheritance, not through charm, not through luck, through something most men today have completely misunderstood. He understood what chivalry actually was, and it had nothing to do with being nice. Modern culture has rewritten chivalry into something soft, a performance of politeness, a way to signal moral virtue, a gentleman holding doors. But medieval chivalry was not a moral decoration. It was a code designed for violent men. Knights were trained for war from childhood. Their world was brutal. Kings were overthrown. Lords betrayed each other. Battles were fought with steel, not arguments. In that world, chivalry served one practical function. It controlled chaos. It created rules among powerful men. A knight who followed the code was predictable. A knight who broke it was dangerous to everyone. This is what modern men miss. Chivalry was not weakness. It was discipline applied to strength. Without strength, the code meant nothing. William Marshal was not born into greatness. His father was a minor noble during one of the most violent civil wars in English history. During that war, the boy was taken hostage to guarantee his father's loyalty. He was 5 years old. When the king threatened to hang him, his father was warned. The answer came back cold: "I still have the hammer and the anvil to make more sons." The boy survived, alone, no rescue, no protection. The lesson was clear before he was old enough to speak it. No one is coming. Power must be built, not inherited. William grew up training as a knight: weapons, horsemanship, endurance. But he understood something most knights didn't. Reputation mattered more than birth. And the fastest way to build reputation was not through war. It was through tournaments. Today, tournaments are imagined as sporting contests. In reality, they were controlled battlefields. Hundreds of knights would clash across open fields. Men were captured, injured, sometimes killed. Victory meant ransom. A captured knight paid for his freedom. This made tournaments extremely profitable for those who dominated them. William Marshal dominated them. Chroniclers claim he captured hundreds of knights across his career. Each victory added money, but more importantly, it added reputation. Every knight in Europe began to hear the same name repeated: William Marshal, the knight who could not be beaten. This is the first lesson most men get wrong. Power does not begin with status. It begins with competence that others cannot ignore. Marshal did not ask for recognition. He forced the world to notice him. One story captures William Marshal better than any tournament record. During a rebellion against King Henry II, Marshal found himself riding against the king's own son. That son was Richard, later known as Richard the Lionheart, one of the most feared warriors of his age. In the chaos of battle, Marshal confronted him directly. He drove his lance into Richard's horse, killing the animal beneath him. The future King of England hit the ground. Richard was on his back, helpless, surrounded by chaos. Marshal could have killed him. He had the angle. He had the moment. He had every justification a knight needed in open war. Instead, Marshal stepped back. He looked at the prince on the ground. "I will not strike my lord." Then he turned his horse and rode away. Let that sit for a moment. He had the power to change history and chose restraint. Not because he was afraid, not because he was weak, because he understood something most men never learn. The ability to destroy someone is only power if you choose not to use it. When Richard became king years later, he remembered that moment. He elevated the man who had spared him above every other knight in England. Restraint, exercised from strength, is the highest display of power. Weakness cannot afford mercy. Only strength can choose it. Many warriors were skilled, but medieval battlefields were full of skilled men who died young. Skill alone does not create power. What made William Marshal unique was discipline. He understood the real purpose of chivalry, not kindness, control. A knight who lost his temper was predictable. A knight who chased glory blindly was easy to manipulate. But a knight who followed the code, who controlled his speech, honored his commitments, kept his reputation clean, became extremely valuable. Kings began to notice, because kings did not need emotional men. They needed reliable ones, a man who could fight fiercely, but remain loyal. This combination is rare. It was rare in the 12th century. It is even rarer today. William Marshal eventually entered royal service. He served Henry II, then the young king, then Richard the Lionheart, then King John, one of the most hated kings in English history, then Henry III, 5 kings. In medieval politics, surviving one reign was an achievement. Courts were full of betrayal. Advisors schemed. Nobles changed sides whenever it benefited them. But William Marshal survived every political storm because he followed one principle most men ignore. He protected his reputation for loyalty above everything else. Not because he was a good man, though he may have been, but because in a world where alliances shifted weekly and trusted advisors were executed at court, loyalty was the rarest currency alive. Every man around him was calculating. Marshal calculated differently. He understood that in an environment of constant betrayal, the man who never betrays becomes indispensable. He did not flatter, he did not betray, he did not chase short-term advantage. Even his enemies respected him. And when men who hate you still trust you, your power becomes real. The greatest test came near the end of his life. King John died. England was being invaded. Rebel barons had invited a French prince to claim the English throne. The heir was a child, Henry III, 9 years old. Someone had to hold the kingdom together. The nobles chose William Marshal. An aging knight in his 70s, he became Regent of England, the most powerful man in the kingdom, not because he demanded authority, not because he was the strongest man alive, because everyone believed he was the only man whose word would hold under any pressure. He rode into battle at 70, defeated the invasion, saved the crown. A lifetime of discipline had made him irreplaceable at the moment it mattered most. William Marshal died in 1219, an old knight who had outlived nearly everyone from his generation. Historians would later describe him in one phrase: the greatest knight who ever lived. Not because he was charming, not because he was agreeable, not because he was harmless, because he mastered the balance that defines real power: strength, discipline, loyalty. Modern men chase approval, knights chased reputation, and reputation built through action outlives every opinion. If this video sharpened your thinking, subscribe to the Marble Sage, because power is not something you claim, it is something you build, one disciplined decision at a time.